If you are an estate agent, letting agent, or someone who is interested in the property market, then the UK Property Market Stats Show, is for you. My name is Chris Watkin, and each week I'm joined by a special guest. This week it's Toby Martin. We'll come to Toby in a second. What is the Stats Show? Well, everyone's obsessed about the property market in the UK, and therefore we're giving you statistics to tell you what's happening. In fact, 36% of homeowners chose their estate agent based on the agent's property market knowledge. So again, if you're an agent, watch the show so you have some great stats and some great graphs that you can prove you know what you're talking about. This week, we are looking at week 21, which is Monday, the 26th of May, all the way through to the 1st of June, week 21. Amazing. We're nearly halfway through the year. I'm joined by Toby Martin this week. Toby Martin is a former letting agent from Bath and now has set up his own consultancy, helping, guiding and supporting estate and letting agents in growing their businesses. He specialises in lettings and he also specialises in helping agents with their video content. Toby, back for the second time. You must have done something good the first time to be invited back, mate.
I survived. I survived the cut. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you. And not another guru, Chris. Not another of those gurus.
Oh, the last thing we need is another bloody guru. Oh, excuse my French, another guru. But without further ado, some of us have to stand up, and go for the fight. Why do we talk about the property market, ladies and gentlemen? Well, the Land Registry is looking at sales that took place in 8, 9 months, 10 months ago. The Halifax and Nationwide are looking at sales that took place 2 or 3 months ago. We're looking at last week. If you've never watched the show before, it's roughly an hour long. We'd recommend that you watch it on a large screen because there's a lot of data and a lot of spreadsheets. The first half is talking about the UK property market. The second half talks about a town or a city where we really deep dive and analyse what's happening in that local property market. This week, we're going to the beautiful city of Plymouth. I bet you've been there. You must have been there, Toby.
Oh, well, we're talking the West Country, so you're on my patch, Chris. Yeah, I've strolled along Plymouth Hoe with a lovely view of the sea many times. Very familiar with it. Lovely place.
It is a beautiful city. In fact, I live in Grantham, ladies and gentlemen, and I did Plymouth in a day on a train. It took me 4.5 hours to get there, had a meeting for an hour and a half, and got the train back. It's a lovely part of the world. Absolutely. But anyway, we're not the tourist board here. So, as I said, we are looking at week 21. So we'll be comparing week 21 with other week 21s. We will be looking at the year-to-date figures and we'll be going back to 2017 and comparing and contrasting. By looking at that, then you can use this information as a estate or letting agents in your valuations, because all the graphs I'm going to show you today, ladies and gentlemen, you can download free of charge if you go to the YouTube write-up, and at the bottom there'll be a hyperlink where you can download the graphs. All I ask is that you don't actually publish those graphs on social media because my daytime job is that I'm a property economist, ghostwriter, writing content on the property market. And my clients like to use them for their own benefit on socials, but I'm more than happy for you to use them internally and also use them at your valuation. So please do use them. They're a resource for you. So without further ado, as I said, we'll do the first half of the show now where we go and look at the national figures. So let me pull those stats up. So here we go. Right, Toby, so you should be able to see a graph on the screen now. Can you just confirm that before we crack on?
Loud and clear.
Beautiful, beautiful. So, ladies and gentlemen, the way we work this is that I talk about the stats, and then Toby comes in and gives his thoughts. Okay, so we'll just minimize that, get rid of that, and here we go. So, the white line, ladies and gentlemen, is 2025, and we're comparing it against the red line, which is 24, the yellow line is 23, and then we've got the green, turquoise and purpley colors, which are 2017, 18 and 19. The year-to-date figure is 779,348 properties have come onto the market, which is 5% ahead of 2024 and 15.7% ahead of the 9-year average. The average in 17, 18 or 19, just again for your benefit, was 686,700. As I said, the number of properties that come on the market this week, 31,968, and the average value of a property coming onto the market is 443,000, nearest damn it, £900. Well, here we go. It was a bank holiday, so does that scare you, that drop for listings?
No, well, like you say, it was a bank holiday, and I did check, and week 21 last year was not a bank holiday week. So that came in the following week. So yes, we have lost a day, and I think that if you put an extra day's listings in there, then we wouldn't be looking too bad.
And you're
And
absolutely right. Here, can you see? This is it. That
there we go.
there you go. There is the bank holiday. That one there is the August bank holiday. Okay, that is the late May bank holiday. And again, ladies and gentlemen, we always have three dips in the spring. Okay, we have Easter and we have the two bank holidays. And therefore, any of you doomongers out there want to jump on it, just take a pinch of salt, ladies and gentlemen. This is bank holiday, okay? So it should bounce back up and probably bounce up to around 35, 36,000 next week, although they have been running in the early 40s.
Yeah,
Now,
well, for new listings, I mean, you put I think the second chart down was had the label saying we're 15.7% higher than the 9-year average. So listings is looking very pretty, really. And so hopefully all the agents watching this have got very healthy pipelines and lots of stock on and as we'll come on to, the question is, are they selling? And I've been enjoying, you've been telling your social media followers a lot lately, Chris. I've noticed that each house that goes on the market has a pretty much 50% chance of selling. So lovely. We've got properties on the market, but are they selling? Well, we'll come on to that, I'm sure.
okay, so an opportune time to bring up stock levels. Now, I do this at the end of every month. We're filming this on Tuesday, the 3rd of June. My stats haven't come through from 20EA yet with regard to the number of properties for sale. So that will be next week. But you can see generally, yes, I mean, again, we'll come to it. I mean, last week was the highest number of sales for the week for 148 weeks, which was May 22. But the magic thing, so that was that one on to that's eight. The yellow line is April, so it would
Yep.
be this. It'll be that one to the next week, which is nearest damn it 420,000. Nearest damn it. So when there were 420,000 household properties on the market in that May, we were selling around 29,000 properties per week. Now there's 720,000 properties for sale, and we're just about selling the same. So if you want good news, it's the best week for 148 weeks. If you want to temper it a bit and put a bit of reality in there, because remember there's lies, damn lies, and statistics, then there is nearly double the number of properties on the market.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's opening a can of worms, isn't it? And I know that we'll come on to stats that dive deeper into that shortly. But that balance between yes, we all want to list properties, we all want to secure instructions, but we've got to sell the damn things as well. And I think that yeah, we'll obviously get into pricings and reductions, and this will all. I think by the end of this show, we'll have a healthy idea as to why maybe that figure is where it is right now. But yes, so supply listings looking really strong, and the bank holiday is I think just doing what it does. And I'm sure that on the stat show next week you'll be showing an upward curve again. So I think the bank holiday is something that we can factor in, and it's just done what it normally does.
You're so right. This is I mean, normally we bring this in later in the show, but I think it's an appropriate time because again, there's a bit of structure to this, but there isn't a huge amount of structure. And this is the percentage of your sales stock that you are selling on a monthly basis. Now, again, we haven't got the May figures in yet, but I suspect it's going to be in around that 15 or 16% mark. The two things here, so therefore, again, let's just confirm that most estate agents are selling just under 1 in 6 of the homes that they have on their books, which is 15. I think the first things, pardon me, just to note is, isn't it fascinating that the shape of each year's graph is almost identical?
Yeah.
Up, squiggle, drift down, up, down, up, squiggle, squiggle, slight up, down. Look, they're all the same.
Yeah.
And the crazy years of 21 and 22, it's the same shaped, if you can see it. It's just that the tide has moved it up.
Yeah, it's just elevated, which
Yeah.
shows that we should all know what's happening and what's coming. We should all be able to advise clients exactly what to expect. The market is actually pretty reliable in terms of the patterns, and you can see it right there. So none of us should be surprised by the peaks or the troughs, and we should be able to advise our customers accordingly.
Here you go. So again, why don't you on a regular basis as an agent, you should be knowing what your stock levels is and are you matching those sort of numbers? Okay, let's move on. Let's go to price reductions. The number of price reductions this week, 21,505, with an average asking price of those reductions of 419,800. This is again an important graph. Again, we haven't got the May figures in yet because we haven't had it's too early in the month to get them. But fundamentally, I think this is a very important stat, is the percentage of your sales stock that's on the market that you are reducing. So we are reducing on average around, as I said, 13.5%, which is nearer 1 in 7 of the properties that we are putting onto the market. So, fascinating. We are reducing 1 in 7 and we're selling 1 in 6. Fascinating.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
Okay. It'd be interesting to put those graphs together actually, but they're very,
Yeah.
very similar. So yeah, the numbers are high, but in terms of the percentage, do you think we should be reducing more of our properties when you consider that only 54%, it was 53, it's now
Yeah.
54% of homes that come onto the market end up exchanging,
Well,
i.e. they just get paid on.
I think that the right answer is no. We shouldn't be reducing more of our properties because they shouldn't require reductions in the first instance. And
Three
yeah.
pointer.
But yeah, of course, ideally, these homes are priced so that they sell. And we all, I'm sure, if you're watching this, the right move data around the impact it can have on your home. The reduced chances of actually going through and selling, completing on a sale if the property's been reduced, and the how it affects the odds and the chances of actually selling the home. So there are clear statistical reasons to support pricing a home to sell. So ideally, we'd be reducing fewer homes. However, as things currently stand, as things are on the market, then yes, there's no point in having a stagnant home on the market. The longer the home sits on the market, the less likely it is to sell. There's one Rightmove stat that I pulled out before this show, which was according to Rightmove, you're 60% more likely to sell if you get an inquiry on day one compared to if it takes a fortnight to get your first lead. So yeah, if you're not getting inquiries, then clearly you need to have that difficult conversation with the client about reducing the price. But my thoughts on this is actually your client should expect that from day one. You should be going in at the point of agreeing the instruction with a clear marketing plan, so the client knows what's going to happen if their property's still on the market after 2-4 weeks. So they should be expecting it, and it shouldn't have to be a difficult conversation.
Right?
So yeah,
What is
reductions
it?
unfortunately are necessary.
Indeed. Well, if we're having a stat off. Hey, hey!
Let's do it.
Again, a massive stat for you, ladies and gentlemen. Again, do take on board what Toby says. He does know his onions. He wouldn't be here if he wasn't. And he's an amazing human being. So do listen to what he has to say. A stat which I regularly throw out, but it's such an important stat, and is if a property takes less than 25 days to achieve a sale, has to achieve a sale, its chances of it subsequently going to the exchange, i.e., you get paid, is 94%. If a property takes more than 100 days to achieve a sale, the chances of that sale subsequently making an exchange is 56%. I mean, this is not a band, that's an orchestra. That's how wide that is. And properties that are overpriced take longer to have a lower chance of selling. And when they do sell, they have a much lower chance of getting through to exchange.
Yeah.
Now, Toby, I'm sitting on some data at the moment and I'm crunching it. But basically, I've asked 20EA and they've come back, they've done a report, and we've analysed the properties that don't sell and how they are overvalued and the effect of the overvaluation on their saleability. So we
Mm.
put the overvaluing bands
Yeah.
and the price achieved, and it's fascinating stuff. But I will be launching that in the coming weeks.
I want to see that.
Indeed. Right. Let's move on to sales. So, okay, doomongers. Oh my word. Sales have dropped. So again, just to give you an idea, the sales this week, 25,042. There we go. And last week it was 28,861. The week before, 28,800. So again, end of the world, doom, gloom. No, it's bank holiday, kids.
Yeah.
Look, there's Easter. There's May bank holiday, early May. There's late bank holiday. And hopefully she will bounce back up to 27, 28, somewhere around there. But again, just ladies, just and gentlemen, just look at that. From now on, the level of sales will start to drift in a slow downward trajectory. Can't say that word. Oh, I can't. I'm not even pronounce it. It's like apocalypse. I can't say that word. Like I said, the four horsemen. Can't four horsemen of the apocalypse. I can't even say it.
Been drinking, Chris.
I wish I had. I tell you what, I went out last night to watch the new Mission Impossible film. Had
Oh,
a couple of beers, very nice. And if you're into your Mission Impossible, do watch. It's very, very. Have
they're
you been?
good fun. I haven't seen the new one, but they're good fun.
Yeah, they are good fun. Right. Okay. So year to date, sales were on 551,500, which is 8% ahead of last year. Now, the gap between 24 and 25 in terms of the number of sales, that how far they are apart, is has been narrowing in the last few weeks.
Yeah.
Okay. So if we roll the clock back probably 6 weeks, that gap was around 11 or 12%. So the gap of year to date sales as is narrowing between 24 and 25. And let's not forget, 24 was a decent year. Okay. We are 16% ahead of 17, 18, and 19. The average price of a property coming onto the market is 371. We'll come back to that in a sec. We'll compare the price ranges in a second. And like we say, the number of properties sold subject to contract, 25,000. We've already done the sell through rate, so we don't need to look at that. Let's come back to that one. Scores on the doors, Toby.
Yeah, like you say, we're just a week ahead of the bank holiday trough. But yeah, I mean, reasons for positivity. If you could just go to the next graph, Chris, the cumulative gross sales. I paired that up against one we looked at earlier, which was the cumulative listings. So looking at what the comparison between cumulative listings year to date and the actual gross sales. And so when you pair those up, we're actually a slightly higher percentage of listings going through to sale this year than they have in the last couple of years. So that's reason to be cheerful. Properties are selling, and you know, like we were just saying, we'd all want it to be higher, and perhaps that would be if those reductions could be dealt with, either at valuation or having those conversations with the clients. However, yeah, we're pretty much in line with the last couple of years, really. So there's nothing too dramatic happening there. It's robust and consistent, if nothing else.
I mean, in 2022, we hadn't had the quasi-Quarton budget, pardon,
Hmm.
and we hadn't had the interest rates kicking in. And to say that, and again, remember what we said about the percentage of homes selling is much lower,
Yeah,
but to say that the total number of house sales is within a gnat's whisker of the 22 figures, that's good. Yeah,
it's
the other
very
side of
good.
the coin is We're not selling as many with, our saleability rate. Let's just remind ourselves, in 22, it was up at 30%. Most
Yeah.
agents in 2022 were selling 30% of the properties they had for sale. Again, if you were at Property Mark and you said, how many homes were you selling in 22? I bet you most agents would say 80 or 90%. You weren't. You were selling 30.
Yeah, absolutely. So
So
you're right. Yeah, to have maintained that, and we know obviously that the challenges that have been in the way of agents. We really had to work hard on building consumer confidence, and with obviously with everything with the interest rates, the various sort of buyer incentives like stamp duty. There's been a lot of challenges over persuading consumers that now is a good time to buy. Now is no, you shouldn't wait. And so I think to maintain that consistency over time, I think is a bit of a success story, really.
indeed it is. Indeed it is. Right. Let's just go and have a look at the average listing price, which is the red line, versus the average asking price of a property going to sold subject to contract. Now, you're going to say, when I say you, I'm just talking about the royal you, you're going to say we don't know what the property actually sold for. But what we do know is through 20EA and other reports from Hamptons, the average difference over a long period, over lots of properties, difference. And the general normal average is between 1% and 2% below the original below the posted, not the original asking price, the posted price. Okay. So therefore, is it perfect? No. Is it 95% perfect? Yes, it is. What we're looking at here, ladies and gentlemen, is the gap between the two. So let's just remind ourselves the average asking price of a property selling is 371,300, and the average asking price of a property coming on the market is 443. That's not to say that every property that's coming on the market at 443 is selling for 371. What that's saying is, of the properties that have sold, this is the average versus the other one, which is this is the average of the asking prices that are coming on the market. So what that is saying is lower price properties have a higher chance of selling, a higher propensity of selling. Interestingly, Toby, I've just done some analysis looking at every region in the UK, and I've split it up into up to 250, 250 to 500, 500 to a million, and a million plus. And it just matches. The lower price properties have a much higher chance of selling. And then as the prices go up, the saleability drops.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's it's quite interesting, obviously, to know which areas of the market are the most active, because that's information, that's data that agents listening to this can bear in mind when they're pricing properties. Because we talk about overvaluing and talk about the importance of getting the price right when you list a property, but obviously there's a sliding scale, and if you can get access to the data that Chris is talking about, which shows you the most active aspect of the market, well, when we're talking about overvaluing, it's not an exact science, because if you've got a really busy portion of the market, then you can of course be bolder with your pricing in that specific slice of the market. So being really well informed about the variety and the pace of the market in the different aspects and areas within the market, I think is crucial to knowing exactly how to price accurately.
absolutely bang on.
And
Bang on.
actually, something that I just jotted down myself, Chris, on the subject of the average listing price of new instructions as opposed to sales. So I was last on the show in week 10. And I did flick back and have a look at the stats that we were talking about then. And I just found it quite interesting that when I compared the two figures of average listing price between week 10 and week 21 that we're looking at now, comparing year on year, in 2024, in week 10, we were listing prices at 440k. And this week, that's jumped up to 459. So a 19 grand increase between week 10 and week 21. This year, Back in week 10, we were listing prices on average at 443, and week 21 is 446. So quite a small increase between week 10 and week 21 in this year. Turn back the clock to last year, big jump. And so I do wonder if that tells us that maybe there's a glimmer of hope that agents are actually realizing that we need a bit of caution over listing prices, and they're showing a little bit of restraint, learning from what we've been talking about. And I found it quite interesting to see that dramatic jump last year in that 11-week period versus quite a cautious increase this year. So perhaps there is an element of agents just trying to understand the market a bit better.
Yeah, I have some thoughts on it that don't go against what you're saying, but just separate thoughts.
Yeah.
Is is it's very it can be dangerous to look at weeks in isolation,
Hmm.
and I think it's important that you look at the general trend. And if you actually look at the general trend in 20, she
Yeah.
rises through the spring. Sorry, she rises through the spring, then she drops off in the summer, and then there's a huge jump there. And there is a huge look. If you look, the shape of that
Hmm.
graph there is same again, almost identical.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
And then she jumps up. This, ladies and gentlemen, that's West London. That's all
Mm.
that is. Okay. Because when that this is this the in the SW and W postcodes, so they're the more expensive postcodes. And what you tend to find is their markets just go off in July and August because they all go to the south of France and what posh people do. And then all of a sudden, this is literally 3 or 4 thousand. So last year it was 5,000 in the SW and W postcodes. And because the house prices are so expensive, that's all that is. Remembering the sort of numbers that we're dealing with here, we're dealing with normally 40,000 listings a week. It is literally a 2 week period where 5,000 listings come on, but they are so expensive. It brings the average from around 400 up to the late 400s. And again,
Yep.
just look at the shape. That is almost identical to that, as
Yep.
is that. And this is the wonderful thing. What you said earlier on is that the property market is predictable
Yeah.
in the fact that it does its own thing, and it's just whether the tide brings it up or down.
Yeah.
But okay,
It's reliable. We can all rely on those patterns. We know what's coming.
and
Yeah.
And you're so right. In terms of overvaluing, the bigger properties are a bit more difficult to shift. But, is it right that a property under £250,000 outside London has a chance on average of selling around 60 to 70%, whilst over the million, it's nearer 30%?
Yeah, absolutely. So I don't want people to watch this and think that we're just giving a very simplistic message, which is everybody needs to reduce their market appraisals. It's more nuanced than that. It's understand the portions of the market, understand the portions of the market where properties are selling, where they're not selling, where they're needing reductions, where they're not needing reductions. And then if you do have that market appraisal on a two bed for 250,000, and that's a really active portion of the market, you can say to the vendor, well, actually, this is an area where there is high demand. We can be a bit ballsy on the price, and that's very different to a conversation you're going to have on a four-bed detached, which is on for 750,000.
And again, remember what Toby said is go and see the vendor. And again, we're not talking about the negs here, we're talking about the valuer. In fact, go and see them after 2 or 3 weeks. In fact, what Romans used to do, when Romans were pure Romans and not owned by a big large
Yeah.
firm, is that and they might still do it now, but they actually book in at the take on a face-to-face meeting with the vendor after 3 or 4 weeks.
Yeah, that's great. I love
Okay.
that. Yeah.
So yeah, right. Okay. And that I would recommend you do that. And again,
I love that idea, and I just love the idea of having a clear strategy from the outset. So you're saying to the vendor, this is how we're going to market your property, and we're going to book in that call after 3 weeks. And if
not
your
booking a
property's
call, you book
yeah,
in a face-to-face meeting.
book in a face-to-face meeting, and if your property's still on the market at that 3 week point, we already know what we're going to be discussing with you because we have a plan, we have a strategy, we have a plan A, and we have a plan B.
Good. Let's move on to fall throughs. So fall throughs this week are at 5,441, which is a slight reduction, but again, you're going to get a slight reduction because it is bank holiday. The fall through rate is at 21.73, which again, you can see here that the general trend is in around those early 20s. I think a more important one. This is a monthly stat. We haven't got the May figures in yet, but generally, what percentage of your sales pipeline falls through a month? And that is around the 5.5% mark. So again, I think that is a more important stat. And again, let's just remind it, 21.73, and there's the numbers. Nothing really happening there, mate, is there? Just nice and steady.
Nothing exceptional. Whenever we have these conversations, I always come back to. I'm always stunned that we. I mean, I think it's growing. I'm I'm always surprised there's not a greater take up of reservation agreements. I think that's something that will probably become almost the norm in a state agency in the future. And I think that that's something that a lot of agents should look at to give their clients more confidence. I think it's a really good option. But yeah, there's nothing exceptional happening with fall through rates at the moment. It's steady, and the question is, could it be reduced? Well, yeah, there's lots of factors that can affect that.
Yeah,
One we've already
get your
touched on.
solicitors, get your solicitors instructed on listing.
Yeah,
Big one, especially especially with flats. And again, you're right,
absolutely.
reservation agreements.
Reservation agreements, dealing with the whole material information conversation, making sure that the buyers have got all the information that they could possibly need at the earliest possible stage, so there's no nasty surprises. There's lots of factors, and as we spoke about last time I was on this show, I hate to keep harping on about it, but the pricing as well. The pricing does also affect your chances of fall throughs too. So all of those factors, yeah, there are things that we can do about
Hang
it.
on.
But yeah, for
Again,
this week, it's
yeah,
it's steady as she goes.
net sales. Let's move on. So this is gross sales, less fall throughs. So we've already done gross sales, so we've done the fall throughs. So the net figure this week is 19,601, which is slightly lower than last week. But of course, it's going to be lower simply because the sales were lower. Last week it was 22,243. This week, as I said, 19,601. Year to date, 422,600, which is 5% higher than 2024 and 12% higher than 17, 18, and 19. And again, that number of net sales year to date is slow. The gap between 24 and 25 is narrowing. It's very slightly, around 0.5% to 0.75%. So the way, the rate we're going on that one, that then I think we'll be matching the 24 figures by August or September. At the
Yeah, and it'll
rate
be
that we're going.
interesting. We've obviously just had the Bank of England base rate cut, and there seems quite a lot of confidence that there'll be more. So it'll be interesting to see whether that will encourage buyers to hold fire. So yeah, we'll see how that progresses. But obviously, with the stamp duty, so-called cliff edge behind us, there's no reason now for buyers really to sort of lack confidence in this market. And I think that what agents can be doing is educating as much as they can buyers and sellers, making them aware that actually that there's no great event really that's going to change what buying a property looks like coming up in the future. Yeah, the base rate might shift one way or the other a little bit, but actually there's no reason to hold off any longer. There's no stamp duty incentives. There's no major things happening to interest rates. So I think that it'll be quite interesting to see how that unfolds.
Okay, so this is net sales, and again, you can see the white line there compared to all the other years. And again, you can see that again in most weeks. Next week was the May bank holiday. May bank holiday this year in terms of the weeks is slightly further nearer, so that's why it's dropped this week. So again, nothing untoward there, I don't think. A couple of extra graphs here: gross sales as a percentage of listings, and price changes as a percentage of listings. I know some of you like to see those sort of things. Let's just remind ourselves, as I said, we've already seen the number of properties for sale. This is sales pipelines in unit numbers. Again, we haven't had the year-to-date figure. We haven't had the May figures yet, so that will be updated. I'll be getting that information later this week, and then I'll update it next week, ladies and gentlemen, in the stat show week 22. That's the end of the first part of the show. Is there anything you want to say before we go to Plymouth?
I think just for me, it's I think to the agents watching this, Chris gives you some amazing data here, really compelling data, and this doesn't get put in front of home sellers very frequently by agents. So you've got a great opportunity here to help to educate your clients when they are at their most receptive to information, which is around the market appraisal period when they're looking for information. So I'd really encourage people to take note of the data that will make a difference to your clients and find ways to work it into your market appraisal process.
Let me just remind you, ladies and gentlemen, that when 10,000 vendors were surveyed by the Property Academy for the EA Masters, 36% of them said they chose their agent because of the agent's property market knowledge. Okay. And again, as I always say, when you're at a party and someone finds out what you do for a living and you tell them that you're an agent, the first question they always ask is, what's happening in the market? So therefore, I find it fascinating that agents don't talk about the market. Fascinating. Right, without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, we're now moving over to the second part of the show, which is where we go to Plymouth. So let's go to Plymouth and let's go and have a look at those stats. Right, ladies and gentlemen, we are using a bit of kit called Insight. Insight is a platform from the firm 20EA. 20EA have a number of different platforms that do various different things, business generation and other groovy stuff like that. But Insights is their data platform. The best way to describe this, it's Rightmove Plus on steroids with two rockets strapped to it with lasers and glitter balls. I jest you not, it is absolutely amazing. This is a piece of kit that you as an estate or letting agent can have access to. There is a free version, but the timescales are quite limited. I think it's the last 3 months. Then there is a platform where you can have, I think it's up to 10 postcode districts, and that's extremely reasonable. I must stress to you, ladies and gentlemen, I am not on commission. I'm not being paid. They do give me this platform for free. I'm declaring that to enable me to do the stats I've done for you in the first part of the show and look at this as well. But if you are a property agent and you are suffering from overvaluing, or you're an agent who is being beaten up by cheap fees, whether you're from Plymouth or not, it's irrelevant. This piece of kit, if you can read the data and the analysis behind it, will help you grow your estate agents and use the statistics to your advantage. If you are a Plymouth agent and you want some details on how to read this data, watch this show. Most of you have also had an email from my colleague Ricky, and who's given you my mobile number, so you can give me a call and we can looking at some of this data to help you analyze it in a lot more detail. We can look at, and so we're looking at, as I said, Plymouth this week, and let's go and have a look at those stats if that's all right with you, Toby.
Yep, excited to dive into this.
So we are looking at Plymouth. Just to remind us, we are classing Plymouth as PL1 all the way through to PL9. Okay, so this is Greater Plymouth. And I know, it is a port city, so some of it is on one side and some of it's on the other. And again, you can analyze this down to individual postcode level. In fact, you can analyze it down to postcode sectors, not only districts, sectors. It's that powerful, okay? The dates go back to 2020. Please, if you are interested in this bit of kit, contact 20EA. As I said, they have a free version. They have a 10 postcodes, which is basically a town or city, and then they have a regional version, and then they have the national version. And basically, it's the same bit of kit that if you had the town one, it's exactly what this is. You're just limited by geography. So without further ado, let's go and have a look. And the way we work this, ladies and gentlemen, is I just keep talking, and Toby, you jump in at any time where you see something that looks interesting. This section will take about 20 minutes. So without further ado, Watkin, come on, let's crack on and let's have a look. So we'll look at new instructions first, and we're looking at between the 1st of the 1st, 2020 and June, 2nd of June, 2025. And we're going to be looking at new instructions because at the end of the day, this is what it is all about. And with that, let's go and have a look. Julian Marks. So Julian Marks, I believe, are an independent estate agent with a number of branches around Plymouth. And again, this is yellow, which is the unfortunate colour, they have a multitude of colours on this. It's unfortunate, is this, but generally the trend there is in a slight upward direction, that in 2020, Julian Marks were bouncing between 5 and 10%. It looks like you had and then from 23 onwards, that you've been slightly growing. And as I said, now you're hovering around that 8 or 9% range. Isn't it interesting, Toby, that they looks like, there we go, that oh, that's interesting. So I
Yeah.
noticed we've got some Connell sequence agencies in the mix there, and they tend to have spikes up in December because what happens to Connell sequence group agents in December? There's a certain day, 26th of
A very special day.
very special day, Boxing Day release. So we're
Yes.
actually going to see that in action, ladies and gentlemen. What it does look like there, though, is that Julian Marks. Now, the question is, they're not obviously not doing a December launch. Are they holding back for a January launch?
So yeah. They're not doing Boxing Day bounce. Yeah, they're doing a
No, but are
New
they?
Year
Look,
special.
no, but are they? Okay, that's the point. If I was expecting like a first of
Mm.
January, I would expect whatever the drop was in December to be over and above in a Jan. I would expect the spikes to be in Jan. Okay, where's that spike there? Okay,
Yeah.
that's March. Uh, so
They got a little one
yeah,
there.
it's not huge though. Again,
Yeah.
if it look, we're running at 9% in November. Ignore December.
What about 2025? Where's that big jump? That's
That's
January,
not a big
isn't it?
jump.
No, it's not.
So what this
It's
is
a big trough, but it's not a big jump.
what that's telling me is that Julian Marks appear to be suffering and don't, they're not holding back. So that if I was a director of Julian Marks, I'd be asking myself, why am I being hammered
Yeah.
in December? Because you're not holding, it doesn't look like you're holding it back because you're not lumping it in Jan.
Yeah. It will be interesting to see if there's another agent who who takes that share from them.
Oh, look,
And look at that.
here we go. Here we go. Look, December,
Yeah.
December.
And this is the Boxing Day bounce in action, is it not?
This is the Boxing Day in action, mate.
And that's interesting that it appears in this instance anyway to be working and possibly reading between the lines, they are taking some of Julian Marks's market share at those time of years, perhaps through their marketing campaigns.
Isn't that interesting? I mean, and
Mm,
again, if you look at their December Jan figures, they're not actually hurting that much.
yeah,
So again, if I was a director of Julian Marks, you are so right that Connells are, they're not dipping that much in Jan. Sorry, they're not. They're obviously bulking them on for December, but they're not being clobbered in January.
yeah. So the directors of Julian Marks, they need to have a conversation along the lines of what can we do to protect ourselves against clearly on an annual basis, some of our market share is being taken off us at this time of year.
Right, but we might have we've just found, I've just looked at the stats and there might be a reason here, right? Here we
Okay.
go. Okay. Look, the average price of a property coming on the market is £256,000.
Mm,
With Connells, it's 209. So therefore, if we were using the analogy of supermarkets, then more Connells are more Morrisons,
yeah.
whilst Julian Marks are more Waitrose. So therefore,
Yeah.
I think it's fair to say that the posher properties don't tend to come on the market in January
Yep.
or December. So actually, I would say you could extrapolate. Julian Marks are not suffering from Connells, then probably a little bit.
Yeah.
Because again, it shows you the splits there. Look, there's not that Julian Marks, his properties tend to be around this 250, 300. Whilst if you look at Connells, their midpoint is around that there, which is the lower end price ranges, which are again more have a higher propensity to probably be affected by a Boxing Day. Again, it's just the devil's in the detail. Let's keep
Yeah.
Langham
The
Town.
Julian marks are being more affected by seasonality. So
Yeah.
that's damn it. I thought we were breaking a Boxing Day bounce success story there, Chris.
No, 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 no. I think what we're doing is that Julian Marks are more of a posher agent.
Yeah.
Okay, Langham Town market share is dropping slightly. Bradley's, you guys are dropping. Fox and
Hmm.
Sons again. Fox and Sons, if they're part, I think it's common sequence. They're not spiky. Fulford's a part of Countrywide. Are they a Boxing Day bounce? Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Plymouth Homes, Pilkingtons, Lawson's. Your market share seems to be drifting there.
Mm.
Falcon Properties. Okay, you had a nice
Steady.
steady. Ignore the spike. Nova, Mayors. You're growing. Well done.
Mm.
Martin and Co. Cross Keys. Oh dear. EXP. Oh,
Ooh.
guys,
Look
look,
at that.
10%.
Yeah.
There you go. Now, interesting that there's two cross keys there. Why is it? So therefore, some reason we need to add
Mm.
both of those together. So if they were 1300, they would be up here at around 7 or 8. So apologies, it doesn't
Mm.
happen that often. If you wanted to amalgamate those together and you were a individual firm, you can contact 20EA and then we'll put you together. Right, we'll just have a look. There we go. There you go. Let's just have a quick look and just have a look and just see who's the main players because we saw EXP picking up the
Yeah, whoever is the XP agent in that area has obviously made a bit of an impression.
look at that EXP. Look, nearly
Mm.
10%. I mean, again, if they're at 10%, then although hold on a second, let's just pull that back because we're only talking one day here.
Mm.
That was just a bit again. Let's just have a look. EXP. There you go. That's a bit more where they were. If you've just put a load of houses on the first of the month, you're going to screw the figures up. You're going to 5%,
Yep.
still not bad.
It's still, yeah, it's still
Actually, really
on
good.
the
So big well done
trending
there.
upwards. Yeah.
Judy Marks, let's just have a quick look. There you go. Good stuff. We like
Yeah.
that. Right. Okay. We'll just have a quick look at the posh price range to see who the movers and shakers. I suspect that is going to be Julian Marks. So 750 upwards. Here we
Hmm.
go. Oh, well, there you go. So that's oh, here we go. Now there we
There we
go.
go.
So Julian Marks coming in. So it looks like March and Pettit and
Yeah.
Lunscombe May tend to be the posh agents. So that's interesting. We'll just take
March and Pettit have got a big slice of the pie there.
Here you go.
17%.
Look at that. And March and Pettit getting
Mm.
even higher. So they tend to be the posh boys and girls. Excellent. Look at that. They seem to be the right,
And
not
then
much over
we,
2 million.
yeah.
Right, let's just have a quick look at stock levels. And you can see here, we again at the end of May, that there were 2,584 properties for sale in Plymouth compared to 1,432 in 2022. So again, you can use this as stats that you can say, do you know that property prices are not property, but the number of properties for sale is well, that's near as damn it, near 80%. There are 80% more homes. You could work I haven't
Yeah.
done the numbers properly, but you get an idea there. Let's move on and look at this stats here. Again, most agents are going to look at new instructions and new instruction market share and sale agreed subject to contract. Again, the most important bonds here are these four here. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, ignore this. I know that's vanity. This is reality.
Mm.
A property only leaves an estate agent's books for two reasons. Number one, she exchanges, you get paid. Number two, she withdraws, you don't get paid and you've lost money. Okay. And I think this is the most important statistic that any estate agent can use is what's your chances of actually getting the house sold? So if I was looking at this immediately, Julian Marks, number one agent, we're looking at from the last 2 years, and we're looking at all of the exchanges or withdrawals, i.e., all the properties that left your books in the last 2 years. And Julian Marks, now look at this. This is amazing. Julian Marks, normally the big agent in town, suffers from this figure because by the very nature you're the biggest, you tend to have low figures. A big round of applause for Julian Marks at 73.49%.
Yeah.
73.49% of homes that Julian Marks have put onto the market have ended up them exchanging, them getting paid, and the homeowner moving home. Whilst Connell's, I'm not criticising,
Mm.
54.58. I'm just doing rough maths. That's about 35% difference. That Julian Marks has a 35% greater chance of getting a property sold and moved than Connell's.
Yeah, but why would you not want to put that in your marketing? That's a fantastic stat.
And again, if
And look at the
any
fall
agent,
through rate as well. Their fall through rate is you've got to go quite a long way down the list to find anyone with a better or lower fall through rate. So they're obviously doing a lot right.
so look, that's the average in Plymouth. So
Mm.
that's really good. Price changes 38. So there's quite high price changes here. They're all in the 40s. Who's at 26? EXP. We'll
EXP,
have a
yeah.
look at that in a
Yeah,
second.
yeah. EXP's fall through rate is 15% as well,
That's really good. Well
which goes
done.
hand in hand with, I know they've done, I can't remember the stats, but they've done a lot of publicity recently. I know about how EXP on average, I think their fall through rates are pretty low.
There is a massive difference in that exchange ratios. Have a look at that, ladies and gentlemen. I mean, there's agents there in the 50s. There's agents, the average is 63.7. Mayors at 81. Well done.
Mm.
So just have a look at these stats. Miller Countrywide at 49, Nova Homes 75, Mayors at 81. There is some huge differences here. I know there's new homes we can, and
Yeah.
just have a look and see where you sit. Okay. And if you look, this is very, very similar. That this, what you tend to find is the smaller the agent, the greater the chance you'll get the house sold. Look, there's in the 60s, we're in the 80s, and we're in the 80s there,
Yeah.
mainly. So you can see, ladies and gentlemen, you can use this bit of kit to get you, if you're up against the big agent in the town. Fall throughs, yep. One that sticks out there is EXP. Just see if there's anyone lower. Obviously, you would expect auctions to be much
Yeah,
lower.
auctions
Price
are doing well.
changes.
Yeah.
Okay. So interesting. Right. In terms of market share, who's the main movers and shakers? In terms of listings, EXP are growing, as you would expect, but Julian Marks are also growing as well, which is really, really good for a big agent. Let's move
Yeah.
on. Time is running out. Let's have a look at this graph here. Right. Okay. So we've got lots of data here. So we're looking at your exchanges for the last 2 years. Okay. And when the property came onto the market, the agents would have taken 20EA would have done an automated valuation model figure on that property and then compared that to what you put it on the market for. And therefore, this is the average overvalue or undervalue percentage. What percentage did you overvalue the property at the time of listing? So Julian Marks are overvaluing at 1.42, Connell's at 2.52, Langtown 1.24, and so on and so forth as you go down. The average is 1.55. So this is your overvaluing stat. But that's just against a computer model, against an AVM, an automated valuation model. Let's go and look at price achieved. With regard to price achieved, this is the price achieved from the original asking price. Okay. So Julian Marks on average achieve 4.2% less than the original asking price. Connell's 3.5, Langtown 4.6, Late Langley, and then so on and so forth. Cross Keys are actually getting,
Yeah.
look, here's the story. If you don't overvalue,
Yeah.
you get more for the house.
Yeah. We've got a couple who are actually in the positive there. Cross Keys and Falcon Properties,
So you
averaging higher than their listing price.
Yes. So therefore, a lot of people don't like percentages. So basically, what they're saying here is this: if you all put on a £300,000 house, what would you achieve for it? And again, I'm just going to let the numbers speak for themselves, ladies and gentlemen. But if I was certainly Cross Keys or Falcon Properties, I would be mentioning the fact that I can get on average 10 grand more than the average.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. That's a great stat.
it is an
Fantastic.
amazing stat. So you can use this to your advantage when valuing properties. Let's move on. How quickly are agents selling their houses? The average it's taking in this year, the last 12 months, is 53 days from new instruction to sale agreed, and 129 days from sale agreed to completion. The top 10 agents, Pilkington seem to be selling them first on average 32 days, EXP 37 days, Let's go and look at, there we go, Julian Marks, 58 days. And then let's look at your sales departments, sales chasing. Sale agreed to completion, 115 days. Mostly they're around 130, 120, somewhere around there. Okay.
Yep.
But if you were EXP or Mayors, you could say, hey, let's just have a look. New instruction to completion, 155 days versus Lang's 211. That's 3 months.
Yeah. Yep. Again, really compelling data, and hate to sound like a stuck record, but not a lot of agents present this kind of data to clients.
Hardly any of
It's
them
a
do.
wonderful opportunity.
Let's have a look. And again, ladies and gentlemen, if you want some advice and opinion on how to present the data, again, you have my email, those guys in Plymouth. Feel free to liaise with me. Let's have a look. This is the rental data. And immediately I can tell that this is a university city, and you are an ex-letting agent, and you were, when you were, a bloody good one as well. Again, ladies and gentlemen, if you're looking for buy-to-let landlord evenings, get Toby in. He will parachute in and do one for you. He's
Absolutely. Yeah.
amazing. And I don't
Yeah.
say that lightly because I do buy-to-let evenings, and even I look up to what Toby. So we can see that these spikes here are around, are they Jan? Are they right? They are October. So
Yeah.
those are the October spikes, and that clearly shows that we are in a student city. Let's have a look. Okay, so open rent. So open rent from a low of around 5 or 6% or 2% now, on average. 22. One in five properties in Plymouth with open rent. This stat, ladies and gentlemen, is going to blow your mind. Are you ready? Here we go. Nationally, in the of all of open rents properties that have come on the market in the last 2 years, 51.2. Over half of them were
Yeah.
previously on the market with a high street letting agent.
And I'm thinking that I can't quite remember off the top of my head. I don't know if you know, Chris, but I think that market share of open rent is probably lower than the national market share of open rent.
That's that. It's about the same.
It's about the same, is it? Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, if not just slightly ahead, but not much. Yeah,
So adequate opportunity for local letting agents there, but you're right that flow of landlords to open rent is, I mean, it's a threat, but it's also an opportunity. There's a lot of landlords trying to do stuff themselves, and you talk about landlord evenings, and I always bang on about the importance of educating the client. So many of those landlords won't be doing things right. So what a great opportunity. You've got a pool of 20% of the market there who you can set your sights on to find the ones who aren't doing things right and terrify the bejeebers out of them, to turn them into leads and
and
clients.
ladies and gentlemen, if you are a letting agent in Plymouth, why don't you give Toby Martin a call? Because he specializes in this stuff. This is his job. He can parachute him in. He can be a fractional lettings director for you, or just be a consultant. He is totally amazing, and I would recommend you get him in. Let's just whiz through the different ones because we are thingy for time. So there you go, and I'll just let the graphs do the talking.
Lots of student letting agents with good market share tells you a lot about the local market.
Just generally here, we're just doing a general trend of the market. So you're just seeing where's your general line going, and if your line is going in a downward direction, then really you're losing stock because of open rent. The stats actually show that the number of private rental properties is still growing. It doesn't feel that way, but the stats and a number of stats back that up totally. What they're doing is they're just going to open rent.
Yep. Yep. Absolutely. And I know we have this threat of a landlord exodus hanging over us, but at the moment there are landlords out there, but a lot of them are choosing to do things themselves.
Yes. Okay. So nice stuff there. Right. Okay. That is the end of the Plymouth show. I hope you've enjoyed that. Nice and sharp, short and sharp. Final thoughts, Toby.
Well, thank you for having me on. Fantastic data as always. Thank you, Chris. From me, it's the importance of nailing this at the market appraisal and in the lead up to the market appraisal. How much of this information can you work in to your market appraisal process? Because that is when the client is most receptive. They're looking for information. They're looking for you to hold their hand and guide them. So the kind of information, Chris's data has clearly shown you how you can differentiate yourself to stand out from the crowd. crowd. So don't go in with a generic, banal sales pitch. Tailor it to your customer, to your company, to your market. And with use of data like this, people cannot argue with data. And so, yes, please make the most of this information that Chris makes available to you.
Right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for watching. If you're a Plymouth agent and you want to grow your lettings business, speak with Toby. If you are a Plymouth agent and you want more of a detailed analysis, splitting it down into postcodes and where opportunities are, then again, feel free to reach out to me and I can guide and support you on that. But thank you for watching. I'll see you next week for another special guest on week 22 of the Stat Show. But thank you for watching this week's, and we'll see you next week. Thanks very much.